Boop, boop. Good morning, folks online. Good morning, folks in person here. So Marshmallow today, perfect time to talk about Marshmallow because it's been so hot. Well, I just got back from vacation. Last 4 days, I was up with my sisters up in Sacramento, and it was in the 90s, very dry, very hot. We were right next to the Sacramento River, but it's still really, really hot. Come back here and it's, a little bit overcast, a little bit more, not quite as dry, but we're going into very dry, hot season. And that pattern of heat and dryness is kind of being seen everywhere because of global climate change. So it's a perfect time for Marshmallow. It's like I planned it or something.
Yeah. Of course.
This is right? That is the family name.
Oh yeah, I had it.
That is the family name. So we have the common name is Marshmallow, and we'll be talking about related plants because there's a lot of related plants here. So Marshmallow is the official one, and that's what we're drinking here. But there's one of our most common weeds this is applicable too. Yeah, so I could walk outside right now and find you our local abundant analog for this that works exactly the same. And we have native mallows, which can be used that way. So you can, you can landscape with them using native plants and also use them for medicine. It's really, really abundant. So Marshmallow, botanical name Althea officinalis. Officinalis, when we see this species name, this means that this is a plant, an official plant of the apothecary. This is a plant that has long been recognized as a medicinal plant. So that's helpful even if you meet a new plant and you're not really familiar with it, but you see that Latin name and you see officinalis, that'll be a little hint for you to know that this is a plant that is medicinal in some way. And so we also talk about the family name. So the family is the Malvaceae family. This is the mallow family. And here we have the familial tendencies. So sometimes we have families that as soon as we know that it's in this family, we know a whole lot about this plant, right? And so the Malvaceae family has very specific qualities that are inherent in Marshmallow. This really is the typifier of the family. Good morning, Teresa. Good morning, Rosa. Good morning, Rita. Do any of you have any Marshmallow tea going today? So we have a water extract. Mallow family plants love water. Water is our preferred solvent, and we'll talk about what happens when we don't use water later on. But for now, we have Marshmallow extract. Now, I started this at about 8 with boiling water. So I heated water up and poured water over it, and then it's been cooling down, and then I added a little bit more cool water near the end to cool it down a little bit more. This is a plant that has different chemistry to extract depending on whether you're using hot water and cold water. And so one of the things that you'll see a lot about this is a lot of disparity in how people think medicine should be made. There are the cold water advocates. There are the hot water advocates. I am a both and advocate, and I can back mine up with chemistry. So
and slow cookers.
And slow cookers, yeah. Well, this one, yeah. I mean, slow cookers are great for medicine making in general, but this one you don't really need it. And a lot of people will just pour cold water on it and just let it sit overnight. But we'll see why that doesn't always work. Dr. Ken, hello. I'm fleshing deer hide right now. Oh, well, yeah, it's kind of hard to do that and drink tea. Wouldn't really want to be drinking tea along with that. So Teresa, you do you. It's yes, focus exactly. So Marshmallow. So the first thing we're going to do, so we don't have a lot of steam because I deliberately cooled it down, right? But you can still smell it, right? Even when things aren't aromatic, they still have a smell. It doesn't necessarily mean that what's coming up in that smell is medicinal or therapeutic or is going to be carrying the chemistry of the plant, but it's got a smell. So what does that smell to you? And does it feel like it is aromatic, like it's volatile oils, right? Those little tiny molecules that carry so much medicine that we see in things like mint and lavender and oregano and thyme and all of those, right? So what do you think about all of that? I just threw like 5 different questions at you.
Herby to me.
Herby?
It smells green.
Smells green.
I don't care for the smell.
Yeah.
It's a little,
Don't
Yeah.
care for the.
yeah. It's like, I know it's a good thing.
Yeah.
This
It's a
is good
plant,
for
but it's
me.
like-
Okay.
Earthen.
It's very earthy. Yeah. Very,
It's a good word.
very earthy. I don't smell aromatics.
It's definitely potent.
It's a strong smell. It's
Yeah.
for me, you know what it is? For me, it smells a little bit musty.
That could
Right?
be it. That
It's
could
like-
be it. Yes, it's like.
Should I drink this?
Excellent.
It's been in the fridge for a little bit. This is still good.
I'm not gonna be Allison.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's not me.
I usually do capsules. Yeah, so capsules are actually really good in this plant, and capsules have some specific effects that are really, really beneficial, and also has some downsides. So that's a really great. It's a really great point that you bring up. When we have capsules, those capsules are going to be held, right? And they're going to go down and release in the stomach, right? And so their effect starts in the stomach through the gastrointestinal tract. Now, if you're using it for throat tissue or oral tissue, then it's not going to be available there yet, right? It's not going to be available. So if you're using it, Teresa, for digestive functions, then it's going to be really, really effective for those lower tissues. Although this is also going to be, so it's just kind of grabbing stuff as it goes along the tissue. And this has a very specific effect that we'll see as soon as we take that first sip. We're going to feel those tissue effects, and we'll imagine those tissue effects happening throughout the gastrointestinal tract. So let's take a sip of this and just hold it in your mouth. Notice the flavors and notice the feel of the tissues in the mouth. And then as it kind of goes down the throat, feel it as it's going through the throat and see if anything is kind of waking up in your body in the presence of marshmallow.
It tastes better than it smells.
I said that myself.
It tastes better than it smells. Yes.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
Yeah. The flavor is very, very mild.
yeah.
What is the flavor? What does it taste like to you?
It's like,
Like herb, like green to me. I
Green
don't know.
tea, I would have said on that side.
Except for this doesn't have tannin, it feels more slippery.
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
Very good.
So you feel more of that slippery.
And it almost feels like mucusy when you
Yeah.
hold it in your mouth.
wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I mean,
Dang, I'm having more.
Yeah. So not tannic.
Versus our tannic one.
No, so no tannins, right? This is going to be one of the few classes where we're not going to be talking about flavonoid chemistry, because it's not a plant that has a lot of flavonoids. There's a little bit of astringency there, but it's really overlaid by that slipperiness. Yes, this is the primary medicine of marshmallow, is that that slippery
yeah,
quality.
exactly.
And so we call that a demulcent. And the quality of slipperiness is called mucilaginous.
Whoa, you know.
And the chemistry is mucilage. All right, so this is the action. The action is demulcent. When we read that a plant is demulcent, we know that it's going to have this slippery quality to it, right? And we call that slippery quality, we say, this is a mucilaginous plant. I feel that slipperiness in our mouth. And we remember that the mouth, the oral tissue is very vigilant. It gives us a lot of information. The tissue is there to give us information before something comes down into our mouth, when we have time to spit it out. There's a lot of information tasting. And so we use that quality when we're introducing ourselves to a plant so that we can kind of feel and sense that. I found it helps with dry sinuses and cough. I've read somewhere that hollyhock and okra leaves do the same as marshmallow. Yeah, and you know why? Because they're in the Malvaceae family. Okra is a Malvaceae fruit.
Well, that's slippery.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Super, super slimy. And the fruit capsules tend to concentrate it more. So yeah, okra is really, really slimy. Absolutely. But yeah, you got it exactly right. That is that familial tendency. So you know, if you meet a plant you've never met before, but it's in the Malvaceae family, you know all sorts of stuff about it. You know its primary actions and its usage, right? So where do you feel that sliminess kind of showing up? In your mouth? Yeah. Now here's a cool thing. Teresa said that she was I found it helps with dry sinuses and cough, which is curious because she's taking it in a capsule and it's not hitting the tissues.
Oh.
Right?
Oh, I forgot she was capsule though.
Yeah, yeah. So there's an immediate effect on the throat tissues when you're drinking it as a tea.
Right.
However, there is a quality that we see in plants that are mucilaginous, right? So when we as organisms are developing in fetal form, we start out as this very simple collection of cells with a tube running down the center, right? There's a little spinal column, right? Little spinal cord, little tube, little collection of tissues. And as that collection of tissues develops, it specializes. So that tube specializes into sinus tissues and eyeballs and nostrils and mouth and gastrointestinal tract and lungs and urinary tract, urinary bladder, all of these other tubes in the body, mucus-lined tubes, come from that initial structure. And our best understanding as to what mucilaginous plants do, where we see that quality of moisture, of providing that moisture and lubrication and soothing quality to tissues, even when it doesn't come in contact with them, is that there seems to be a reflex response to mucous membranes that, remember, they were all one tissue at the very beginning. And so when they're kind of hit with mucilage, they respond. All of the mucous membranes of the body tend to respond with, oh, we're getting slimy, we're getting moist, right? And so we have a moistening effect throughout the body in all of the mucous membranes particularly. So we'll also find that with like dry eyes, dry sinuses, dry vaginal mucosa, dry lungs. All of the mucous membranes in the body tend to respond to the presence of mucilage. And all of the tissues tend to respond to the presence of mucilage. Mucilage is, well, about us, when we had COVID, yeah. So it's been a lifesaver during COVID, because with COVID, a lot of the presentation is heat and dryness, right? Inflammation, chronic systemic heat and inflammation. And heat and inflammation stemming from dry tissues, right? When tissues are dry, they rub against each other. And if you rub your hands together, because you're going to feel heat, right? Heat is generated, and that heat drives out moisture. Heat drives out moisture. So you have this dryness, and then you have friction, and that drives out moisture, which makes more dryness, which makes more heat, right? And so we have dry tissues beget dry tissues, beget dry tissues. And so when we can, and that begets inflammation and perpetuates inflammatory processes in the body, systemic inflammatory processes.
Okay, so dry tissues equals inflammation. Mucousy,
Not
tissues?
necessarily,
Okay.
but we'll go, yes.
yeah,
Okay.
take us there
Yeah.
at some point, please.
So dry tissues can equal heat and inflammation, right? Because that dryness causes, but there can be inflammation that doesn't stem from dryness. We see inflammation that's kind of boggy and stagnant and too much fluid there, right? So this is why we look at tissue states. We look at those qualities of, is it heating or cooling? Is it drying or moistening? Because those qualities in the plant we can match with the qualities of our own tissues. And we can look at our tissues and say, I see a lot of dryness there. I see heat there. I see coldness, right? The color blue, the color white, I can feel coldness. I can sense coldness. There's not a lot of vitality and action, right? So these are called tissue states when they're in our body, and they are the energetics of the plants are those same things. And we match those up, and that is the elegance of herbal medicine, is when we can match those energetic qualities of the plant to the needs of the person. And those are going to apply to things like, sleep herbs, right? You look up sleep herbs, and there's 25 different sleep herbs in your book, and you're wondering, which one do I pick? Which one is going to be best for me? You look at the energetics of those plants, and you look at your constitutional tendencies, whether your body is constitutionally hot or cold or dry or damp, and you choose the plant that has qualities not associated with the energetic pattern, right? You're taking it for sleep, which is not necessarily an energetic pattern. I just want to sleep, right? But if you have a hot, dry body and you take a plant like valerian, which is a hot, dry plant, then your valerian is not going to work likely for you as well, because you're going to be all twitchy and inflamed when your body's like, yeah, I feel sleepy, but I also feel dry and twitchy because that was a really hot, dry plant that you put in me. So yeah, I'm tired, but I'm not going to sleep because now I'm all antsy because what I need is something like marshmallow root, right? And sometimes all that heat and inflammation is dryness, right? And so we're taking anti-inflammatories like turmeric and ginger to reduce inflammation in our bodies. But if we look at what causes the inflammation, if we see the pattern of dryness as the primary reason for the inflammation, well, you can take all the turmeric that you want, but turmeric is hot and drying. And so you're reducing the symptoms of inflammation, but you're not dealing with the cause of the inflammation. And so you are effectively taking turmeric like ibuprofen. You're taking it to suppress the symptoms without understanding those underlying patterns. That's why we like to talk about these energetics of plants, because that allows us to understand what is the best anti-inflammatory for me, for my body. Well, what's going on in my body? And it allows us to understand our bodies better also, right? Instead of just saying, there's inflammation, I have arthritis, it's inflammation, turmeric is the anti-inflammatory for arthritis, I'm going to take that. We can stop and go, oh, let me look at my inflammation a little bit more. Let me look at my arthritis. What does the tissue feel like? Is it really every time you move it? Well, that's dryness, right? That is friction and dryness. And what I need is moisture in there. But if it's swollen and inflamed, there's a lot of moisture in there. Maybe I don't need to be putting more moisture in there, right? In which case, turmeric would be a great one. Right. So this is the cause of my focus on energetics. And I got distracted talking about that, but it's really important.
That is good.
My husband has a reaction to it, makes his hand peel. The marshmallow makes his hand peel, Teresa? Yeah, we have reactions to everything, right? Our bodies are also going to say either I love this plant or I don't love this plant, and we want to pay attention to that. So let's look at the chemistry of this mucilaginous action in the plant. So this slipperiness, this demulcent quality, mucilage is made from compounds called polysaccharides. All right, they're specialized polysaccharides. Now, saccharide, this root word means sugars, right? So these are sugars. We have monosaccharides, tiny little single structures. Monosaccharides, like glucose, is a monosaccharide. And then we have disaccharides too, right? So sucrose is a disaccharide. It's made up of glucose and fructose bound together. So we have monosaccharides, disaccharides. We have oligosaccharides. Oligo means a few, it's a little bit longer. And then we have polysaccharides, which are many. Poly is many, right? So many sugars bound together. So if we make a visual, this is mucilage. They're big molecules, lots of sugars linked together to make this mucilage. And sugars love water. In medicine making, whenever we're dealing with a plant that has saccharides, anytime you're seeing this, you want to immediately say water is going to be the best way to work with that plant, not oil, not vinegar, not alcohol, but water. Is there a difference in the body's benefit from drinking the leaves in tea and making a hot water porridge using root powder? We will talk about that, Rita, because that is a great question. In fact, we're going to be working with the powder, and we'll talk about the difference between the leaves and the root. So the root is what generally people use. There's a little bit different chemistry in the leaves, so I'm going to come back to that one because that's a great question. Because yes, there is a difference. All right, so these long chains of sugars, they're big long chains, and they're kind of wrapped up in these little balls in the root system, in the root tissue. And as soon as they hit water, they're going to swell up and absorb water. They're like little sponges, right? So they're like little sponges. They hit water and they swell up. They're able to absorb and hold water. And so the structure of polysaccharides are all of these little binders of water. And then we drink it, and all of that water held in those long chains is coming in and laying itself on the tissues. Just like if you had you had something that's dried on a surface, right? You try to clean it off, and it's not going to clean off because it's kind of dry and crusty there. But if you take a sponge and you lay it on top of it, you let it sit there for a while, it's going to soften. Everything softens, and it can move along, right? So when we have dry tissues, when this mucilage comes along and lays on top of the tissue, it's going to allow that tissue to absorb and hold moisture, and it is going to be protective and moistening. And when it enters into our body, the structure of the water in here is such that it's able to kind of get into all of the tissues in our body. So not just the immediate effect on the mucous membranes of the gastrointestinal tract, but also systemically, so that we can often feel it in our joints, right? In that synovial fluid in our joints, which has a chemical structure very similar to the mucilage in the plants. So mucilage in the plants and the interstitial fluids in our body, the fluids that bathe our body, they are very, very similar. There is an affinity for our body for these things. So oftentimes people with dry, hot constitutions can drink water, and they're going to drink water and they're going to pee it right out, and their body is still dry. Drinking, peeing it right out. Their skin is dry, and their eyes are dry, and their lungs are dry, and they're not getting that because the body is just, it's too easy for that water to go out. But when we have it in this complex structure, then the body's going to take it in and hold it and say, yes, I recognize that structure. I respond really well to that structure, and I'm going to have that moistening quality. So very, very good for those bodies that need that dryness, that moisture. Now there's two different types of polysaccharides in marshmallow. So this comes to the, is it better with cold water or hot water? So we have the mucilage, right, which is a specific type of polysaccharides. And then we have the cellulose. Cellulose is the structural compound, right? That's the fiber in the plant. Cellulose, look at this. This ends in OSE. Whenever you see OSE, that means that it is a sugar, right? OSE means a polysaccharide. So cellulose is a specialized polysaccharide that we can't really digest, right? That's why when you eat a diet that's rich in cellulose, you have nice poops because it's able to hold moisture in the intestinal tract, right? So it makes poops softer and easier to pass because it holds moisture, but we can't absorb and use it. So the cellulose doesn't respond really well to cold water. The cellulose is sometimes going to be very rigid. And here we kind of look at the quality of the marshmallow. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this, where you have, sometimes you'll buy marshmallow root and you'll pour cold water on it because mucilage loves cold water. Mucilage wants to just hit cold water and swell up and make a gel form, right? So it's going to, if you're just looking at the mucilage in a plant, cold water is what you need. Because mucilage loves cold water, it's just gonna expand right away. But if you have a root, marshmallow is a root, and the structure of that root, because roots are big and heavy and dense, especially marshmallow root, it uses cellulose for that root structure. Sometimes with certain crops of marshmallow, or if the root is older, or other reasons I'm not really clear on, there's sometimes you'll take marshmallow and pour cold water on it and it will not give you any of this mucilage. You drink it and you're like, it's like you put some roots in water and it never got that thickness. You never felt that slippery quality. You know you're not getting the medicine if it is not slippery, right? You want that. This is that organoleptic testing, right? You're trusting your organs of sense to tell you the chemistry of the plant. You know the chemistry of the plant. You are now always going to know the chemistry of things that you take into your body that are mucilaginous, that have these type of polysaccharides, because you can feel them, right? And so trust your body. If you're drinking your marshmallow root tea and it's not slimy, you did not extract that mucilage. It still is in that root when you press it out. And sometimes it's that you need to break down that cellulose, and cellulose is going to break down better with hot water. Right? So sometimes you need a 2-stage, and mucilage isn't damaged by heat, right? So this is why I like the 2 steps. If you do hot water and then let it cool down, then you're breaking down the cellulose and then extracting the mucilage, right? So test your marshmallow root. Sometimes your marshmallow root will make a nice, thick, slimy, gross mucus party. And if not, then you need to throw some heat on there. But there's a lot of people who learn marshmallow needs cold, and so they're only using cold water extraction, even though it doesn't work. They say, nope, that's what I learned in school. It's like, don't listen so much to the books or other people. Listen to your own body. Taste it and use your senses and trust your body to tell you what's going on, right? And if you're not getting it, try something else. But generally, that duality, hot and cold, is what's going to work. Now, you generally don't see that. Another plant, which is the other plant that is used as a mucilage, cyprium, exactly, yeah, cyprium bark. And cyprium, we have the bark tissue that's very, very fine. It has a much lower concentration of cellulose, and it almost never needs heat. Cyprium, you can always just put cold water. It's going to immediately just go whoop, and turn into slime right away. But marshmallow is a little bit more tricky sometimes.
So there's a rule of thumb for amount of time with heat and cool for like marshmallow?
I just pour heat on it and let it cool down. I'll generally do an overnight extraction.
Okay.
Yeah, I do an overnight extraction. Now that does bring up the fact, so a couple of different things. That slime is one of the types of polysaccharides, but there are lots of different polysaccharides in plants, and all of them hold on to water. Other ways that you can sense the presence of polysaccharides in plants is the flavor. They're sugars. So you're going to taste a starchiness, you're going to taste a sweetness.
I don't taste the sugar.
You don't taste it?
No, in the marshmallow.
It's sweet to me, but sweet plant sweetness
Okay.
is different than what we tend to think of with. Take some more and see if you can sense it.
Because I'm really good with sweet. I didn't find it. But
Yeah. So it's not a sweet. It's not a small molecule sweetness sweet, right? It is a starchy sweetness, but it's what we call sweetness in herbalism, is that kind of starchy quality. So the starchiness, body, that kind of thick thick quality to the plants. Anytime you're seeing that, you're going to be seeing polysaccharides, and that always is moistening. So sometimes we tend to think that it's only the slimy plants that are properly moistening, that are properly demulcent. And that's not true. So we have the slimy demulcents, but we also have just the starchy demulcents, right? So
What's a starchy one?
a starchy one would be astragalus root,
Okay,
right?
all right.
Or burdock,
Oh, okay.
right? Yeah, so that's number one, an important thing to remember about that. There was something else, and I don't remember what I was going to say. So it'll come up again. Are all elms have the same benefits as slippery elm? Yes, Teresa, yes, they do. And I'm so glad you asked that. Teresa asked, do all elms have the same qualities as slippery elm? Yes, and there are lots of Russian and Chinese elms that are used in landscaping. They're really common. They're all over LA. They're likely all over where you grow. They're really, really common. Slippery elm as a specific species is Ulmus fulva, and it is at risk. It's a plant that has been over-harvested in the wild, and it has been exposed to Dutch elm disease, which has really damaged the wild specimens of slippery elm, which is why if you buy slippery elm powder or slippery elm products, anything made with slippery elm, it must be organically grown. If it's organically grown, it means it was grown on a farm and they were not harvesting wild trees. We want to leave the wild trees alone because we've caused a lot of damage and because disease has caused a lot of damage to them. So cultivated slippery elm, organically grown slippery elm, winged elm, as long as it is in the genus Ulmus. I don't know winged elm. There's lots of different winged elms. The elm that grows in our region is the introduced the Chinese elm. Yeah. So go get it. And you know what? You can check whether they're medicinal, Teresa, because go get a little branch and break off a branch, slit that bark. It's the inner bark. So just take a little strip of that inner bark and pop it in your mouth and chew it. You'll immediately get that slimy. It's sweet and slimy right away. Really strong, very good medicine. Anything in the Ulmus family, which is not a Malvaceae, just because plant chemistry is complex. And we see mucilage in a lot of different plants. All right, so let's see. So that ability of, okay, let's see. Sometimes people like to use tinctures for plants, for medicine, right? Tinctures are easy to use because they are concentrated. You can keep a bottle around with you, pop them. They're just really, really great. But polysaccharides like water. Polysaccharides really don't like alcohol. They really don't like alcohol. Alcohol degrades polysaccharides. And this is a really important part of medicine making with plants. Polysaccharides never like alcohol. And never, ever, if you ever see a plant that the primary chemistry of the plant is polysaccharides, you know you're just going to have to use water. Yeah, I know tinctures are handy, but no. And I am going to demonstrate that with some of our marshmallow root infusion. Right, so this one, I diluted this one a little bit for you folks, but this one is a little bit more concentrated because I wanted to have lots of those polysaccharides. This is 190 proof alcohol. That's what I use to make our tincture. So I'm going to make a high concentration of alcohol here to prove a point. But generally, if we're ever using plants that are really rich in polysaccharides, especially things like marshmallow, we never want the alcohol content to go over 25%. So if you make a tincture, it has to be 75% water, 25% alcohol, the bare minimum of alcohol to keep something shelf stable because it doesn't like alcohol. It says it's Ulmus alata. Yay, there you go. Ulmus alata. That will be. All right, so I poured the alcohol in, right? And you can actually see immediately, do you see the precipitation
Yeah.
of those polysaccharides?
Yeah, that's just like a strand.
Yep.
That was like immediate.
It's immediate, yeah. So
and
it
clear
is,
water
I
on the
love
top,
it.
I'm sure.
yeah,
That's alcohol.
that's
Or
alcohol on the top, that's
Oh,
it.
yeah.
So
That's
if we
cool.
swirl it around.
Oh, it's globular at the bottom.
And then it goes right back. Yeah, look at
That's what I'll.
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna,
All the time.
sorry, just sprinkle, you're now gonna smell like 190 proof alcohol.
And we're
So,
gonna
officer,
roll
yeah.
that.
All right, so
Cool.
now you can see it a little bit more. And this
You can actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
is what happens.
Yep.
We
Yep.
just
Yep.
damaged all of that. It's the most disgusting thing. It's
Yeah.
fine. Look at that. It's snot.
Yeah, I know.
It is totally disgusting snot. So number one, it shows mucous membranes love this stuff, right? They love this, but this is really disgusting snot. I love doing this with kids and adults because everyone loves being grossed out by things. Not everyone, actually. Some people are like really, really like, I can't even look at that. Sorry if you folks online are, but this is what happens with alcohol. This is why you cannot make tinctures with plants with polysaccharides. Even if you don't see this happening, it's happening. And all of that valuable chemistry is being damaged by the alcohol. So you just make a water extract and be okay with it. So that's one thing. Now, I have some powder out there for you. And what I want you to do is take some of the water in the beaker there and take one of the little sticks and just add a little bit of water. I'm going to use some of my tea. Add a little bit of water to your marshmallow powder. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a paste of marshmallow. So that's why you do capsules. Yeah. Now the downside to capsules is that they're not hydrated. Those polysaccharides have not been pre-hydrated with water. They require hydration in your gastrointestinal tract. So you did lose an opportunity to have that direct connection with the mucilage in the plants, with the throat tissue, all of the gastrointestinal tissue that missed it until that capsule opened. So, yes, you'll get those secondary effects because of that tissue affinity, but you don't get the direct effects. That's the only downside with capsules. Yes.
Would this be considered a like an irritant? What I'm going to say, for somebody who's constipated, it is a.
No. So it can have a mild laxative effect.
Laxative.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it is a laxative only in that it is holding moisture in the intestinal
It's gonna
tract.
add-
Yeah,
So
it's going to add lubrication.
So somebody who was in a wheelchair,
Mhm.
this might be good for them to help pass.
Possibly. If their poops, if they have little rabbit poops or
Yeah.
deer poops, right? Little drops,
Okay.
dry drops, right? Then yeah, they need, again, we're looking at those tissue states, right? We're
Mhm.
saying, oh, if only I could get some moisture in there, that would be really helpful. So this would be good for dry
I'm thinking
constipation.
Those capsules.
Yeah. There are other plants that are laxative because they cause irritation to the intestinal lining, and they induce peristalsis because of that.
And those
That's
can be addictive.
They are very addictive and they're harmful. So that is a very different way. And then you also have the qualities of cellulose, right? This isn't cellulose. This is this is some cellulose, but it's primarily mucilage. If you have something like psyllium husks, right? Or bran, those are all cellulose. And those are big sponges holding a lot of water. Those are the best forms. But for dryness, where it's like, well, I got poop. There's a volume in the stool, but it's very dry. It may be that all they need is marshmallow. The other thing is that dryness in tissues can be due to a lack of water, but also what? What else can cause dryness in tissues? A lack of what?
Fat.
Yes, exactly. Fat. Yeah. So you also want to assess for does your body respond better to water or does it respond better to oil or both? Is your diet a diet that just needs more fat in it? Right? Especially with some older people who lived through the 80s when we went through that whole low-fat diet thing, and we still have that in our brains, right?
Yeah.
People in their 20s and 30s generally didn't ever get that, but it was really, it was beat into us, right? It was wrong. We were very, very wrong in our understanding of fats in the 80s, but there are still doctors who are trained in that and hold on to that and will tell their cardio,
No nuts.
no nuts,
How beautiful
no
nuts
avocados.
are, and they will not let you, nuts are evil.
Yeah, nuts are evil because they have saturated fat in them. It's like, oh, doc, you need to go back to school and you need to get some education in nutrition. Basic,
They never had it.
I'll give it to you for in 2 hours. I will set you straight on why you're so stupid. Yeah. All right. So if we look at this paste that we've just made with the marshmallow root, right? We have this paste, this mucilaginous paste. We allowed those little sponges to absorb that water. Put some on part of your skin, just somewhere on your arm. So this, we are using marshmallow as a poultice. Now here, this chemistry is very much like the chemistry of aloe vera, because aloe is slimy, aloe is mucousy, aloe is rich in polysaccharides. The aloe leaf, the plant, nopal also, right? Cactus petals, right? So in aloe and nopal, the plant has a lot of polysaccharides, and it also holds water. So it's got its own water. Okra too, by the way. Okra, this would apply to, right? Fresh okra. It's got its own water. All you need to do is cut open those cells and access it. With this, we had to rehydrate it because it's dry, right? So when we put it on the skin, it is holding their tiny little sponges, holding water next to the skin. So this can be very good for skin that needs water, that needs that moisture right there. On burns, this is really, really lovely. Any kind of dry tissues. Now, again, we want to look at, does that skin need water or oil? Yeah.
Eczema.
Some eczema, because some eczema loves water and some eczema loves oil. Some eczema hates water. So
Treating the symptom.
yes, but also sometimes it's okay to treat the symptom. As long as you recognize, I am only treating the symptom right now, that's fine. I'm also doing the other work.
Soothing it.
Yeah, but yeah, relieving.
For your skin. Like,
It's wonderful on the face. It's wonderful on the face. Yeah. So here's the secondary effect of this. So it's holding moisture. Great. Really, if you ever get a burn, this is a wonderful, wonderful thing to go on there. Now, what happens when you have a sponge that was full of water and you leave it out? What happens to that sponge? It dries up and gets all crusty. I want you to leave this on your skin and let it dry. Because what's going to happen is as this dries up, all those sponges are going to shrivel up. As they shrivel, as that water evaporates and goes off into the atmosphere, this was holding on to skin, right? And as it goes, it's going to shrink down. The water is going to go away and all of this is going to shrink down again. And so what's going to happen to the underlying tissue is it has a drawing effect. So it is very, very good. A marshmallow root powder poultice is very good anytime you have something that needs to be pulled out of the skin. An infection, a zit, a splinter, a bite. Yeah. Anytime when you just want to pull something out of there, not a wart necessarily, because that's more of a growth, right? It's a long-term growth. Yeah. But a splinter is a perfect example. You want to just pull that out, right? So marshmallow root, make it as a paste, let it rehydrate, put it on, let it dry, and it's going to suck that up and dry it. Now, you would not want to do that on a burn. If you had a sunburn and you put a marshmallow root paste on there and you let it dry, that would hurt.
Yeah.
Because that delicate, that sensitive tissue, that acutely inflamed tissue is going to dry up. So if you're using it on a tissue state where you need that moisture, you want to keep the marshmallow wet. So you'd want to keep it covered so that you don't have that water evaporating. If you want that drawing effect, you want it uncovered so it can evaporate. Yeah.
Okay, the difference between your aloe, which is polysaccharide, and
Mm-hmm.
this, which is a polysaccharide, why is it okay to use the aloe on a burn?
It's not. If you put aloe on a burn and you let it dry, it's going to do exactly the same thing because that's what polysaccharides do. So, and that a lot of people do that. They put aloe on a burn and it's like, oh, that felt so good. And then it's like, oh, now it's itchy and irritated because the polysaccharides dried up. You have to continue to reapply it, or use a thick piece of aloe vera and just leave it on there. And it is not as effective if you just put a thin layer of aloe on it and you leave it. You do that once and that's it. Well, that wasn't great because as soon as it dried up, I mean, there's other chemistry in aloe, but the primary chemistry is the ability to hold water on that damaged tissue. So a thick slab of aloe vera leaf, cut it in half, slap it on there and leave it. Now you have, it's not going to dry out, right? Or just keep on applying that aloe gel over and over. Now, if you want, now this goes to using on the face, right? If you want a little bit of a firming, tightening effect on your skin, you can make a gel of marshmallow. You can use the tea. You can just apply the tea to your skin because this, you don't want to be putting on your face and then leave it, right?
Yeah.
But you can put aloe on your face and leave it and you'll have kind of a firming quality. Sea moss gel will do this. Marshmallow will do this. Polysaccharides do this. So it has just a little bit of a tightening and firming effect on tissue. And that can be good if that's what you want. The drying effect can be good if that's what you want. The moistening effect can be good if that's what you want. You have a lot of different ways to use it. Just depends on what the tissue state that you're dealing with is and how you treat the aloe. Yeah? Yes.
So when you made this tea today,
Mm-hmm.
you walked into the shop, you
Yep.
got the little bark ground. It's ground.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, yeah.
It's cut, what we call cut and sifted. It's the chopped root, but the technical term is cut and sifted. So I just poured water over it, the boiling water, and then let it cool down. And you can see there's kind of a layer. It's separated into the larger pieces at the bottom, the smaller pieces there, but still the fiber, and then the non-fibrous. So all of this is the cellulose, right? And that is the mucilage that's separated out because cellulose isn't soluble in water.
Gotcha.
So you can see the layers of it there.
So this is a combination of the root and the leaf?
That is just the root.
Just the root.
And Teresa was asking about the leaf, and you brought up the leaf. I'm glad that you brought up the leaf. So the root is primarily polysaccharides and all that goes with it. The leaf of the plant is still a Malvaceae. It still is going to be moistening because everything in that Malvaceae family is moistening. There is one exception. Remind me, and we'll talk about the exception. Leaf. So a leaf in a plant needs to be able to protect itself and recover from trauma, right? If a plant leaf is damaged, the plant needs to be able to go in and stop that damage, seal it off. I said I was going to not talk about flavonoid chemistry today, and I lied. I am totally going to be talking about chemistry because it is hard to talk about plants and not talk about flavonoid chemistry.
Oh, no.
Leaves have flavonoids in them. And that's the difference between the leaf of marshmallow and the root of marshmallow. The root has very few flavonoids in it. The leaves have a lot. The leaves have tannins, both tannins and mucilage. So if I were to make a leaf tea for you, you would feel a little bit more of that astringent, tonifying, tightening feeling. And also you would feel the slime. You would feel both of those. So that can be beneficial if you are dealing with a tissue state that needs both of those qualities. And if we think of mucous membranes, that's a perfect description of healthy mucous membranes. Think of the oral tissues in your mouth. Optimal tissues would be nice and strong and resilient with a layer of slime over them, right? Nice, strong, healthy, resilient tissue, slime over the top is perfect mucous membrane health. Not so much for the interstitial fluid and synovial fluid and all that, mucous membranes. So if you're working specifically on something for the gastrointestinal tract, right? Marshmallow leaf tea is really good if you want that tightening, tonifying, astringent quality, but you also want moisture because sometimes just an astringent plant is going to cause dryness on the surface tissues, right? Because it tightens those tissues up.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I want that, but I also want that mucilaginous quality. Now, what you could also do is you could use an astringent plant and just add marshmallow to it. That is one of the benefits of using marshmallow, is as a modifier to the energetic qualities of other plants. So if you're using a single plant that is very astringent and you're like, I really, perfect example of this is, or really drying, nettle leaf. Nettle leaf, people love nettles. They're so nourishing. They feel so nourishing. They're green. They feel good for you. My body can drink nettle tea in large amounts for about 2 days before everything gets really dry. My eyes get dry, my sinuses get dry. I get irritable and twitchy because constitutionally, my body tends to be hot and dry. When I say constitutionally, that means that's just how my body is made. It's not a pathology. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Each of our bodies has a constitutional tendency towards being hot or cool, right? Do you tend to be the person who walks around in shorts all the time, or do you tend to be the person who's always got a sweater on, right? You don't have a disease. It's not, again, it's not a pathology. That's just how you're made. Some bodies tend to hold a lot of moisture. They have beautiful, thick hair, and their skin is just beautiful, but they do tend to just kind of hold more moisture in their bodies because their body likes to hold moisture. Other people tend to have more dry bodies. Right? So if we understand our own tendencies, if we drink nettle tea, something that is heating and drying as a tea, super nourishing, yeah, but after a couple of days in a hot, dry body, it's going to exacerbate that heat and dryness. So I could just say, well, I can't do nettles, which is a bummer because nettles is so nourishing and wonderful.
Yeah.
I could just add some marshmallow root with it, right? I get all the qualities of nettles, but now I've modified that tendency that it has towards heat and dryness.
So you can drink your nettle tea with the marshmallow more than 2 days.
Exactly. Then you can have it all the time.
It negates your irritability of your tissues. It negates everything.
Exactly. Because the irritation is coming from that dryness. So fix the dryness. Super easy to do. So this is one of the reasons why so many people always have marshmallow in their apothecary, so that whatever blend they're making, it's like, I need to throw a little bit of marshmallow in here to just modify that. Or your environment is hot and dry. I need to take a little bit of that, right? Just to modify the effects of my environment, to modify the effects of my constitution, to modify the effects of my acute pathology, right? So we can use it for short-term acute treatment. We can use it for chronic treatment. We can use it just to balance something. We can use it to balance our formulation.
Nice.
Anytime you just need moisture.
So it's not counteracting, but complementing.
No.
Co-working.
Yep, it is co-working. It does not neutralize the chemistry of anything except for the quality of drying. So if you do have a body that tends towards a lot of dampness, it's going to feel really good to drink nettle tea over an extended period of time, right? That body's going to feel great because that's modifying a little bit your tendency towards dampness, and that's just going to feel good. That's going to allow more flow of fluids in that body. For that person, throwing some marshmallow in there, it's not going to counteract the chemistry of the plant. It's just making that energetic pattern a little bit more dampening. And for that body, they don't need that. They really liked that drying quality, right? Just like my body really likes the dampening quality here.
Marvelous.
Yeah,
It sounds like just for me to drink it all the time. I mean,
I drink it. Yeah,
I
all
just
throughout the year.
Instead of just plain water, just almost be drinking that.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's just so.
There's
Yeah.
a traditional recipe is what's called Althea water, which is just making a very dilute marshmallow root tea and adding it to your water. Just Althea water. Just put, and the way that I like to do that is I make marshmallow root infusion and pour it into ice cubes and freeze it. So the downside to marshmallow root tea is the fact that it is polysaccharides, which is the benefit of marshmallow root tea, because polysaccharides are starches. And starches, this tea is a petri dish.
Oh.
Because all sorts of things.
Love.
Yeah. It's really nourishing for us. It's nourishing for all sorts of organisms.
Okay.
So this will only last in your refrigerator about 2 days. And then it'll start to ferment because it's starches. And not a good fermentation also. It's going to be a bad fermentation.
Okay.
So a really short shelf life. Anytime you have something that is rich in polysaccharides, it's going to be a petri dish. So you only want to have it for a maximum of 2 days in your fridge. So you can just make it every 2 days. You can also just make a whole bunch of it, pour into ice cube trays and freeze it.
Yeah.
Then you just take out a couple of ice cubes, throw it into your water bottles.
Yeah.
So do you know anything about using that possibly to sprout yeast? Or bloom yeast?
To bloom,
Like for
it
gluten-free
seems
bread?
like it would be a great
Yeah.
idea for blooming yeast. Yeah, yeah. I would totally. It's a brilliant idea, and I can't believe I've never thought of that. I'm totally going to when I'm testing my yeast,
Yeah,
right?
I have like a
Sure.
gluten-free thing. I'm always trying to figure out the bread. And I
Right.
love sourdough.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to have a starter, but you have to feed that
Right.
typically with the wheat
Yes.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
definitely.
Right.
Every day. Yeah.
Yeah,
like a child.
I'm thinking that
Yeah.
that would work.
I think that would be a great thing to try out. I have no idea, but I think you should try it out and get
So
back
then
to
I'm
us.
thinking it's in the fridge, the starter.
Mhm.
You're putting this in it.
Right.
You're giving it a little 2-day life cycle, but the yeast is eating it.
Yes.
So then it could just live in the fridge possibly.
It could just live in the fridge. And the thing about the yeast eating it is that they are pooping out those organic acids. And those organic acids are inhibiting the growth of molds and pathogens.
Okay.
That's
Glad
why
you explained it.
sourdough is so good, right? If it was just by itself, no, it's just going to degrade.
Sure.
But fermentation, inoculation with yeast or other like lactic acid bacteria. I mean, you could even try it with like something like kombucha,
Okay.
right? Or water kefir, if maybe you wanted to make something, or a jun, which is often used with green tea and honey. If you wanted to use one of those organisms, but you didn't want to use the sugar, because that's the problem with things like kombucha, is that there's so much sugar in there, and those organisms are trained to eat sugar, and they're just. We don't want an overabundance of organisms that really love to eat sugar in our bodies.
Yeah.
But if we could like train them to go, no, you don't need sugar. This is a sugar, right? Technically, this is a sugar. I think that would be a really interesting thing. I'll bet someone has thought of that, because herbalists are very clever and experimental. So now I want to go
Now we
online
know what
and
to
check that out.
research.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is
Is it time?
I'm just I was looking at my slime on my
Me
Yeah.
too.
my arm.
Do we use
Uh,
all of it?
Let me just check to see. Yes,
Just real quick, my eczema is itching like mad.
your eczema is itching like mad. That's because
Yeah.
was it feeling better at first?
It felt better at first and now it's not.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
obviously
So wipe-
I need oil.
You need oil, yes, but it might also be the drawing effect, the tightening effect, right? That it was fine with, it's like, oh, thank you for the moisture, but now it's like, where did my moisture go? You gave me moisture and now you took it away. What the heck is up with you, lady? Right? So yeah, that might be either one, but it's a good thing to know, right? It's a really good thing to know.
Experiment.
Experiment. So the next experiment that I would do would be, I would put it on and then put a cover on it to keep that moisture there, and then see, okay, eczema, what do you think about this?
A little saran wrap.
A little saran wrap makes a great occlusive bandage. It's a wonder. It's perfect,
Yeah.
right? And you don't want saran wrap on your food, so you might as well use it on your skin.
Not after you said that.
Eczema can be a liver issue. Eczema is ultimately an immune system issue. That's what it is. But the liver imbalance, I mean, it can be a whole bunch of things, but it is a manifestation of an immune system that's pissed off about something. And so, the question is, you want to ask is, okay, what's pissing off my immune system and making it manifest here, right? So it's one of the atopic reactions. So we can have eczema, we might have allergies, right? We might have asthma. That's the atopic triangle. But ultimately, the underlying thing is the immune system. But absolutely, liver. And that's why we were saying, yes, this is really good for relieving the symptomology, but you also need to be doing the underlying work of looking at why is my body pissed off? But very good point. Yeah, supporting liver function. I mean, herbalists love supporting liver function, right? Supporting liver function is always a good thing. Let me just go over my class notes and see if there's anything.
This is a great class.
Yeah.
Oh, she's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, cystitis, urinary tract things, especially
Really?
for people postmenopausal.
Ooh.
Menopause, estrogen levels drop down, estrogen holds moisture in the body. When estrogen levels drop down, the tissues are not able to hold moisture as well.
Right.
They just can't. Estrogen levels are dropped down. It's not a pathology. Menopause isn't a disease to be treated.
Right.
It's just a change in our tissue state, and we tend to get more dry. Vaginal mucosa gets more dry, skin gets more dry, everything gets more dry because the estrogen levels drop down. One of the things that people often see is cystitis, because the urinary bladder also gets dry. And so the bladder can become very irritable and reactive. And so we see cystitis often increase postmenopause or just in people that tend to have dry bodies. Marshmallow is so good for cystitis, for bladder irritation that is not caused by infection, it's caused by tissue state. It's caused by tissue dryness.
So this would be maybe a sensation similar to a bladder infection, but no test of positive bacteria?
Right, yeah, you're like, it doesn't feel good, right? And maybe the urine is burning, right?
Oh,
Is dark. There's just a feeling of burning and heat, right?
Mhm.
Burning and heat are dryness and
okay.
heat,
Sure,
right?
of course.
So throw some marshmallow in there and see.
See,
And I mean, the tissue responds very quickly because you're putting aloe on a burn. That's kind of the concept you want to think of. Anytime you're thinking of this in the tissues, you're putting aloe on a burn. Is that going to feel good? Esophageal irritation from reflux, right? So the esophagus gets damaged from the acid coming up and splashing on it because esophageal mucosa is not meant to be exposed to acid. And so you get esophageal irritation. Marshmallow is going to go through and protect and soothe that, right? It's putting aloe on a burn,
this is so good to know.
right? It's an incredibly valuable plant.
You betcha.
Yeah.
What's it called in the bottom again? The cur or something?
This is called the mark.
Mark. Oh,
Yeah, the leftover plant material is the mark. By the way, you can take this mark. I like to use everything and then we'll finish with this because it's 11 o'clock. I like to use everything. I don't like to leave anything behind. Look at that viscosity. So you can see that is this. Yes. If you strain all of this out, you'll be left with your mark, which is very slimy.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be drinking any more of this, but I want you to put your hands in there and just feel that sliminess.
Oh, yeah.
So you can take that mark and put it, absolutely, put it underneath your
This
eyes.
could be what
No
she was
way.
talking about.
Totally you can. Put it under your eyes and let it dry.
Oh,
It's
okay.
holding on to the moisture and the moisture is gonna dry and it just kind of, it comes up just a little bit.
Oh, it's like
Right?
inside an eggshell.
It's like egg white, albumin, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like,
So then you put it on, get your picture taken and then.
Until it turns
exactly.
white.
Yes, it will turn white and flaky, yes, because it is a starch.
You look a little like this.
So you can take this mark, strain it all out, so you just have the mark, and put it in little chunks on a tray and freeze it. Put it into a little container in your freezer, and now you have little chunks of mucilaginous mark with cold. They're cold and damp. If you have a burn or a bug bite or a bee sting, grab one of those little cookies out of the refrigerator and slap it on as a poultice. It's already hydrated. It hydrated in here. It's hydrated mark.
Perfect.
And it's not going to go bad because it's in your freezer. You just grab it and throw it on. It feels very good.
Soothing, I'm sure.
So soothing immediately because it's this. Right? And you have the cold quality of ice. So you have the temperature quality and you have the moisture quality. So again, if you need that effect on your tissues. All righty. So there you go. There's marshmallow. All of this applies to other Malvaceae. We didn't go into the other ones, but you see a Malvaceae, it's going to apply. The one exception to that is hibiscus. hibiscuses have Malvaceae.
Right.
And if you go to a hibiscus plant and you take the leaf or the flower and you nibble on a hibiscus flower, it is totally mucilaginous. Those beautiful red ones, as long as they're not sprayed for whitefly, because they're often sprayed for whitefly because whitefly is horrible on hibiscus. But if you have a hibiscus, take one of those flower petals and chew on it.
Huh.
It is delightful, slimy and mucilaginous and wonderful. Hibiscus, the tea, is not. Because it's not the root, it's not the leaf, it's not the flower, it is the calyx. The little green part underneath a
Right.
rose.
Yeah,
I have our
sure.
rose from last year, right? The calyx. And the calyx is the one part of the plant that does not hold polysaccharides.
Oh,
And that's why hibiscus tea,
Sure.
the Jamaica, is the only Malvaceae tea that we drink that is not slimy, it's not mucilaginous.
Sure.
Not held in that one part of the plant.
Wow.
Every other Malvaceae family plant that we use is going to be
Does it still have the qualities of hydration?
no,
So
because
it's
it doesn't
not-
have the chemistry of
Right,
hydration.
okay.
Right? It has the qualities of
Vitamin
cooling.
C.
It's the acidity and those anthocyanins. It's the pigments and the acids. Yes, but it's not polysaccharides. All righty.
Wow.
I am mind controlled by allergies, and it pissed it off. I know.
It's trash.
You piss it off, and
Oh.
that happens. Okay.
I'll have some-
I don't remember what next week is, but whatever next week is, we will be here.
Yeah.
And
it's August.
it's August, yeah.
That's right.
It's August, yeah. Next week is August. So we'll start on the August class. All right. So see you next week. Bye-bye.
This is so like.